Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is the height of hypocrisy for Republicans to hold a hearing on the so-called censorship industrial complex and the need to, quote, First Amendment safeguards at the State Department when President Trump and Elon Musk are launching the largest attack on free speech in America in decades. Let's be clear, the administration is right now stripping people of the constitutional protection to free speech, to the right to dissent, to express their views if they're counter to Trump and Musk, to use Cold War-era statutes and ignore judicial rulings, all to suit their purpose of squashing fundamental American freedoms. And they have said they are bending institutions to their will. The Trump administration is using that awesome power of government that was just spoken about, of the federal government, to intimidate and neuter any opposition from the legal establishment, academia, prominent cultural institutions, the media, the judiciary. Essentially, they want to strip your American freedoms for their right to have absolute power. Instead of focusing on the fabricated censorship of conservatives, let's talk about real threats to free speech. This month, Secretary Rubio launched, quote, Catch and Revoke, a horrifying program fueled by AI to monitor student visa holders' social media accounts for pro-Palestinian views and mark them for deportation, saying, quote, every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visas. Like many Americans, I have watched in horror as students with legal status, legal permanent residents, have been detained for exercising their right to free speech, like Mahmoud Khalil, who was snatched from his home in front of his pregnant U.S. citizen wife. This is the playbook of authoritarians and dictators, and no matter how you feel about this issue, we should all be horrified by this violation of free speech protections. Ms. Jankowicz, to clarify for my Republican colleagues, just a yes or no is fine, is it true that the Constitution guarantees lawful permanent residents the right to free speech?
Yes, ma'am, it's true.
And is it true that engaging in peaceful protests is protected by the First Amendment?
That's right, Congresswoman.
The Trump administration is relying on Cold War-era language in the Immigration and Nationality Act to strip students of green cards by claiming that their speech has somehow had ambiguous, quote, foreign policy consequences for the United States. This law has been on the books since 1952, and to my knowledge, it has never been used in this way. Since then, we've seen students exercise their right to protest against the Vietnam War, for the Civil Rights Movement, against apartheid. Ms. Jankowicz, is there anything that makes this moment substantively different than other protests that we've seen on campuses when the authority has not been used?
No, ma'am, it does not. And in fact, there's Supreme Court precedent that extends First Amendment rights to legal residents of the United States that I think was passed in or decided in 1953.
And in addition to weaponizing the immigration system to silence protective free speech, reports indicate that the Trump administration is planning to block colleges from accepting any foreign students if the school is deemed to, quote, pro-Hamas simply for allowing legal protest and freedom of expression on their grounds. As an expert that you are on authoritarian regimes, how do these attacks on higher education mirror the repression that you have observed by authoritarian dictators, and why should all Americans be concerned about this?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. This is exactly the sort of thing that I've observed when I was studying in Russia. I'm now banned from going to Russia. When you look at the Hungarian regime, an authoritarian regime, which has also cracked down on dissent, it's closed universities. Belarus also closed a university that was, somewhere where dissidents and civil society figures studied. The right to free speech is the right to free speech, no matter if people are expressing opinions you don't like or not. That right extends to legal residents, and I certainly hope it extends to the folks we are inviting here, Fulbright students and others, to come study in our country, to understand our values. How can we project those values if we're turning them on their heads and arresting people for using them themselves?
And what happens when a president, an executive, uses his or her authority to literally destroy all of the institutions that are supposed to be checks and balances on total power? What effect does that have on U.S. citizens who may not be legal permanent residents, or obviously not legal permanent residents, or not visa holders? what effect does that have on the regular American that's out there listening?
Congresswoman, I think there's a chilling effect. I myself have spoken with people, students, people of color, women who are now afraid to speak up and voice their opinions online and off because of what's happening on campuses today.
This is a slippery slope, and we all should be calling it out. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.